Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 1.1. In this lesson, I just want to review some integers and fractions and some quick rules and order of operations that we always have to remember. So let's take a look at the first examples, example 1 of adding and subtracting integers. The biggest thing I want you to remember here is that subtracting a negative number, as in our first example, really means adding. So this changes to 6 plus 4, which equals 10. We have negative 9, and we subtract a 1, we'll have negative 10. And then over in example C, adding a negative number is the same thing as just subtraction. So here it's negative 11 minus 8, and we get negative 19. Okay? Multiplying and dividing integers, we want to make sure that if we have an odd number of negative signs, then our answer is going to be negative. But if we have an even number of negative signs, our answer is going to be positive. So in our first example, we have one negative. We have negative 7 times 3. My answer is going to be negative, and it'll be 21. Over for B, we are multiplying 3 integers together. But if we take a look, we have one negative there and one negative there. An even number of negatives is going to make a positive value. And then 4 times 3 times 2 is going to give me 24. In our example C, 18 divided by negative 3. Again, we have a single negative sign, so our answer is going to be negative, and 18 divided by 3 is going to give me negative 6. Next, we'll move on to simplifying numerical expressions. And what I want you to remember here is BEDMAS, our order of operations, which means brackets first, then exponents, and then division, and then multiplication, followed by addition and subtraction. Okay, so that is the acronym BEDMAS for our order of operations. So if we take a look at our first example where we have 2 times negative 3 squared plus negative 6 divided by 2, we have two sets of brackets, and by BEDMAS, they have to be evaluated first. So we'll keep the 2, but we'll evaluate negative 3 squared. Negative 3 times a negative 3 is positive 9, plus in the bracket, we have a negative 6 divided by 2. That's a single negative, so the answer is going to be a negative 3. Next, if we take a look at just the second line, we have multiplication right here. That needs to be done first. So we have 2 times 9, 18. Then we have a positive with a negative. That just changes to a negative. So we will end up subtracting 3. And here we get 15. So order of operations, very important. Let's take a look at B. Again, we have some brackets to take care of. Now, what I'm missing here actually is a second set of brackets here. So we need to evaluate brackets first, but then in our brackets, we have another set of brackets. So really right here with the negative 3 minus 5 is where we have to start. So let's take our time and we'll just keep rewriting. Negative 5 minus negative 24 divided negative 3 minus 5 is a negative 8. So we've simplified one set of brackets. Now we simplify the next set of brackets right here. And we'll have negative 5 minus negative 24 divided by negative 8 is going to give me a positive number. That's going to be 3. And then finally, we have our subtraction. Negative 5 minus 3 is going to give me a negative 8. For C, I want to take a close look here. Sorry, it's written so small on your worksheet. But when we have a fraction like this, what we want to do is focus on evaluating everything in the numerator, evaluating everything in the denominator, and then simplifying from top to bottom. So let's start here with 8 plus -6 divided by -3. The division has to be done first. So I'll have 8. -6 divided by -3 is going to be a positive number. So I'll have positive 2. In the denominator, I have -5 plus 1. That's a bracket. Has to be done first. And I'll have -4. And then I have to divide it by -2. Again, simplifying in the numerator, 8 plus 2 is 10. And in the denominator, we have -4 divided by -2. 2 negative signs becomes a positive. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then finally, we simplify from top to bottom. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay, so in those examples, don't forget to evaluate the top of the fraction, then the bottom of the fraction, and then simplify the division at the end. So let's take a look at multiplying fractions. And in multiplying fractions, we simply go straight across the top and straight across the bottom. Now, if you can see, we could cancel out from top to bottom because -6 here and -4 can both be divided by 2. So we can reduce here by writing -3 up there and then crossing out the 4 and writing 2. That just helps us when we go to multiply. It keeps our numbers a little smaller, and then we are less likely to have to reduce the fraction at the end. So we have -3 times 3 across the top, -9, and then across the bottom, 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, we end up with a fraction that we don't have to simplify and reduce anymore because we did the work at the beginning. Okay, that 8. Another multiplication example. Again, we go straight across the top, straight across the bottom. We don't seem to have any values that we can cross cancel, so we'll just have to do this straight across the top and straight across the bottom. 7 times -4, -28. And across the bottom, 3 times 5 is 15. Cannot reduce this fraction anymore, so we'll move on to the next example. In my next example, we have a mixed fraction. And before we do any of our multiplication, let's change this mixed fraction into an improper fraction. In order to do that, we take the denominator, we multiply it by the whole number, and then we add the numerator. So if I go around in a circle this way, you can remember you have to do the multiplication first and then the addition. So it's a negative mixed fraction. It's going to be a negative improper fraction. So I'm going to start by bringing the negative sign down. And then 9 times the 2 is 18, plus the 2 in the numerator is 20. But I keep the denominator the same. So I'll have -20 over 9. Then I'm multiplying by 1/3. And again here, there's no numbers to cross cancel. So we will just multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. We'll get -20 in the numerator, and at the bottom, 9 times 3 is 27. Again, we have a fraction that can't be reduced any more than that. Let's move on. We'll take a look at dividing fractions. And what I want you to remember here is that to divide fractions, we end up multiplying by the reciprocal. So we have 4 over 5 divided by -8 over 3. What we're going to do here is we're going to keep the first fraction the same, but we're going to change our division and multiplication, and we're going to take the reciprocal of the second fraction. In this case, we see that we do have a 4 in the numerator here and a negative here. So we can cross cancel those. Divide both by 4. So 4 will become 1. And the negative 8 will become 2. Negative 2. Now we go back to multiplying straight across the top and straight across the bottom. And I'll end up 1 times 3 at the top is 3. And then 5 times negative 2 at the bottom, negative 10. Okay, so don't forget that we have to multiply by this reciprocal. So let's take a look at this example. And again, we want to start by changing our mixed fractions into improper fractions. So let's go ahead. To do that, again, we take our denominator, multiply it by our whole number, and then we add it to the numerator. We don't touch this negative sign. So then I'm going to go to 5 times 4, which is 20, and add 2. That'll give me 22. But I keep the denominator of 5. I'm going to divide that by, I'm going to bring this negative sign down. And again, changing the mixed fraction into an improper fraction, we'll take the 3, times it by the 4 is 12, add the 1, which is 13, and we'll keep our denominator. Now we're back to dividing fractions, and we have to remember our rule. So we have negative 22 over 5. We're now going to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. We do see that we have 2 negatives, so this answer is going to end up being positive. And 22 times 3 is 66, and 5 times 13 is 65. No need to reduce this fraction. Let's move on to example 6a. We have a few more things to consider with adding and subtracting fractions. Remember, we can't add or subtract fractions unless we have the same denominator. So in our first example, we can see that we have, in brackets, a denominator of 6 and 2. We have to find a common denominator, and in this case, it would be 6. So I'm going to keep my brackets, and I don't have to change this first fraction because it already has a denominator of 6, but I do have to change the second fraction. And to get a denominator of 6, I have to multiply by 3, which means I have to multiply the top by 3, and I'll get negative 9. We can go ahead and do the same thing for the second bracket. You can do it all at once, save a little time. In this case, we have a denominator of 6 and a denominator of 5. And the lowest common denominator there is going to be 5 times 6, which is 30. So to get a denominator of 30, we had to multiply by 5. And so our numerator has to be multiplied by 5. And then we're going to subtract. But in order to get our denominator of 6, we have to multiply, our denominator of 30, we have to multiply by 6. And so negative 4 multiplied by 6 is going to give me negative 24 over the denominator of 30. And I'll keep that in brackets. Now that we have the same denominators, we can go ahead and just simplify the numerators. So negative 1 plus negative 9, that is going to give me negative 10 over 6. And I want to divide that by negative 5 minus negative 24 is really negative 5 plus 24. So we actually get 19 over 30. Again, dividing fractions, we're going to keep our first fraction the same, negative 10 over 6. We're going to multiply the reciprocal of the second. We can cross cancel here because 6 can cancel out with 30. We can have 1 here, and we'll have 5 over here. It simplifies our numbers a little bit. Then we go ahead and just multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. Negative 10 times 5 is negative 50. And then 1 times 19 is 19. So those are the examples that I wanted to go over with you, just to remind you of a couple of the rules of working with integers and fractions. So I'll see you in the next video lesson.